It may sound noble to say that cultures are merely different, not better or worse in any way, and that it is all a matter of perceptions and preferences. But this argument contradicts itself by saying that one way of looking at cultural differences is better, the way of cultural relativism preferred by a fringe of contemporary intellectuals, rather than the way preferred by the vast majority of other human beings around the world, and down through the centuries. These cultural differences do not matter only if cause and effect do not matter. But those who wish to be spared the devastation.
And this is the case. Cause and effect matters, and the liberals don't like a lot of liberals don't like that. And even the concept of cause and effect, a lot of black people will say cause and effect is something white people do, or they try to attribute that concept to white culture. Oh, that's not part of our culture, so we delegitimize that concept. Baffling. Essentially using racism to just it's crazy. Because this concept is considered coming from white culture, you disregard its validity because it challenges a notion that you hold view, right? For instance, cause and effect. Okay, how's the system causing you to disproportionately victimize your own people? How are you gonna blame high crime rates of crime on poverty? Cause and effect. Because they don't want to test they don't want to have any logic to what they believe. They just want to feel the way they feel. And that's confirmation bias. That's dogma. If I can't challenge your question, if I can't question your answer, then it's dogma. You're trying to get me to conform to a view. If all black people thought the same about racism, are you really thinking about racism? Like, think about that. If we all just thought the same way about racism, are we really thinking about it? Or are we just accepting a message? Oh, this is the reason why you have problems. Oh, yeah, of course. It's not the fact that I make bad decisions and I'm just getting the outcome, the consequences of those bad decisions. No, it's the system. The system's out to get me. Of course, of course. Regardless if you see another black man who did an opposite decision from you and he got a different result from you, he got a better result than you. Oh, no, no, no. You try to explain that away. Oh, he's not really black. This is why some groups stay at the bottom, because we want to do this relativism. Oh, every culture is equal. No, your culture matters based on the results. If your culture produces a certain result and it's a negative result that's holding back your community, you have to change it. That's what conservatives believe. Remember, we just went through it with the wisdom. That's how you gain wisdom. Based on the pain you get, you have to make a response. How are you going to respond to that pain? Will you stop doing the actions that got you into that position? Or you're gonna double down, triple down, and say, "No, I'm gonna continue doing this dumb decision, this dumb consequence." And that's what the black culture has been incentivizing black people to do. Let's keep having kids out of wedlock. Oh, how's that working out for you? Inflation is making it harder and harder for people to live by themselves as a single person, but you want to keep making single parent households? How that make sense? And but that's culture. This is why some groups stay at the bottom. And all I'm saying is, you're not at the bottom because of your race. You're at the bottom because of the behaviors that your culture has incentivized you to do. Facts. But I digress. Let's continue.
Stations of diseases which have plagued the human race from time immemorial must either have the cultural capital of modern medical science themselves or have access to others who do. Smallpox, for example, continued to ravage the peoples of Eastern Europe and the Balkans long after vaccination had brought it under control elsewhere in Europe, because this was one of the many forms of cultural capital that came belatedly to these regions. Even after modern medicine became accessible to the poorer peoples of Europe, the same diseases continued to ravage poorer peoples more remote from the centers of Western medical advancement. It was not just a matter of perceptions and preferences. Widely varying amounts and kinds of cultural capital make economic and social disparities among groups and nations virtually inevitable. Yet the political temptation is to overlook the causal influences of differences in cultural capital, which often go far back into history, and instead to attribute these disparities to current failures of society. For example, the head of the leading black civil rights organization in the United States declared in 1994, "Almost half of all African American children live in poverty. Black unemployment is twice that of whites. The infant mortality rate in many black communities is equal to that of many third world nations." the statistics for housing, crime, and education deliver a tragic statement of despair and inequality.
It's not, see, and this is the difference. It's not inequality. It's just the result of the previous generation of blacks' decisions, right? You guys stop making businesses. You guys want to be unemployed. What about the education level? Like, let me go back. Look, because this is a damn shame. Look, Black progress, how far we came and how far we have to go, right? So this is what they're talking about. Progress is largely suppressed story of the race and racist relations over the past half century, because this is news that more than 40% of Africans are now considered themselves member of the middle class. This is during 1964, I believe. 42% owned their own homes, a figure that rose to 75% if you look just at black married couples. Black two-parent families earned only 13% less than those of whites. Amongst a third of black population lived in the suburbia. Because these facts are solemnly reported, the black underclass continues to define Black America in a view of much of the public. Many assume blacks live in ghettos, often in high-rise public housing projects. Crime and welfare checks are seen as their main source of income. The stereotypes crosses racial lines. Blacks are even more prone than whites to exaggerate the extent to which Africans are trapped in inner city poverty. Narrative versus results, right? This is cause and effect. Oh, this is the reality. Look, 1964, the craziness, right? Yeah, sorry. I have to cut this out, but yeah. In 1991, Gallup poll showed that about 1/5 of all whites, but almost half of black respondents said that at least 3 out of 4 African Americans were impoverished urban residents. I bet you if you do the same Gallup poll, it might be even more. And yet, in reality, blacks who are considered themselves to be middle class outnumber those with incomes below the poverty line. That means there were more middle class blacks in 1991 than there were in poverty. But they still want to push this narrative that, oh, all of us are in abject poverty. Oh, the reason why the crime rates in the black community is so high is because of poverty. Malarkey. But this is the narrative they want you. This is the answer that they don't want people to question. They don't want people to have scrutiny over. The minute you challenge it, they want to call you names. They want to call you a coon. They want to call you a sellout. But they ain't calling you a liar, though. That's what I noticed. But, I digress. Let's continue with the video.
Yet in polls, more than 60% of whites say blacks now have equal opportunity. The very possibility that these disparities might be due to cultural differences affecting behavior and attitudes, or to differences in the human capital brought into the workplace, rather than to the behavior of the larger society, received no attention whatever, either in this statement or in much of the media or the academic world. Yet, when all this was being said, Black American married couples with college degrees were at the same income level as white American married couples with college degrees. Even a quarter of a century earlier, black males raised in homes with books and library cards were at the same income level as white males raised in homes with similar advantages and similar education.
Your advantages don't come from your skin color. It comes primarily from your family, because your family is your tutorial. They teach you how the world works, right? And if your family is in a good financial standing, or they have good information and they impart into you good information, you'll have a good outcome. That's not the case in the black community. This is where culture comes in. Reading at a 3rd grade level is seen as the mark in our American society. Black boys are less likely to meet that mark. Why? Who reads the black kids who are primarily raised by single moms, right? Like, I like this problem. Like, whenever something goes wrong with the kid, single moms like to blame the father when they have a monopoly on who raises these black boys. And then the women of their son's generation will complain about how these boys are mama's boys. But you don't want to point at the finger at the source of that problem. Single moms. Boys who are raised with books in the homes make the same amount of income as whites who have the same attributes. To me, that sounds like behavior drives your outcomes, not your skin color. But progressives don't want to hear it. The black liberal don't want to hear it. No, it's because of your race, ninja. Okay.
While infant mortality rates were higher among blacks in general than among whites in general, infant mortality rates among black intact families were lower than among white female-headed families, even when those white females had more education than black females living with their husbands. In short, lifestyle differences have had major impacts on social misfortunes, though only minor impact on much thinking about those misfortunes. The issues reach beyond questions of blaming a group or assigning guilt to society. Future improvements depend upon how much of present efforts go into developing the internal resources of a group and how much into seeking political changes in the surrounding society. The implications of cultural development, as well as cultural differentiation, affect not only such issues as intergroup differences in economic progress, but also race and racism as factors in such progress.
Yep. Facts. Right? You can't. And this is this is why I'm against affirmative action, because essentially affirmative action is just sugarcoating the problem. It's not really addressing the problem. Right? And really the black people that benefit the most from affirmative action are upper class blacks that come from a 2-parent household, blacks that come with educated parents. You just make the people with advantages have more advantages. In some cases, you make the black kid coming from a middle class household having an unfair advantage over white people that come from a lower class income area, because you make this prejudgment. Oh, he's a white kid, he's a black kid, we gotta give this black kid special treatment. But you don't know that kid's come from a rich black family, and this white kid come from a poor white family. But based on race, the black kid is more disadvantaged. Affirmative action really is racism under new management. I tell you this, guys. I really do tell you this. But, black people, like I said, we already proved it. Black people tend to exaggerate the poverty that their fellow other black people are experiencing. And if I dare make the claim or the statement that I think black people are exaggerating the effects of racism as a whole in our society, I'll get called names for that. Well, I digress.